Thank you guys for signing in to another episode of our WHTOO's channel, which means we have to own our own shit. But let me brief you guys for those who haven't seen it before. We have to own our own shit is an acronym in itself. The shit stands for scalability, meaning we don't just want to start a business, we want to grow a business. The H stands for honoring the ancestors whose shoulders we stand upon. The Y stands for you are your brand. Someone is going to buy you before they buy any product or service that you offer them. And T stands for tenacity, because being an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart. With that being said, my goodness, you guys are in for such a treat today. We have Dr. Greta Anderson. But before we just say Dr. Greta Anderson, let's give her the true ramp up that she deserves. She is a business coach, a ghostwriter, an author, a LPGA certified golf professional, as well as a former tennis pro. So we have so many areas that we're going to cover today. And the other thing, based on my mission, why I'm extremely excited, is that I am a girl's dad. I have three daughters at home, and she is the inspiration and the motivation to some of the things that I talk to my girls about. Because seeing the accolades of one of our pioneer African American females is totally inspiring and motivating. And that's coming from a reformed male chauvinist. Because my views didn't used to be like this until I got those three girls. So, with that being said, let me introduce you again to Dr. Greta Anderson, founder and CEO of Pitchmark Advisory Group. Doc, the floor is yours.
First of all, let me say thank you for having me. And I love that. I love that you are all about evolution and growing and being the ultimate dad for your girls because, as you know, we've had many conversations over the years. And I'm just, before the term girl dad was even a thing, I am definitely the beneficiary of an absolutely fantastic dad being in my life. And I'm a big believer in that. So kudos to you. And let me just say, I'm excited to be here because you're right. We could probably talk all day, but I know we won't. But I'm looking forward to our conversation here.
So, with that being said, tell us about your business.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, my business is called Pitchmark Advisory Group. I guess that's the government name of my business, right? But most people will know my business from Dr. Greta, which came to be because, yes, I am Dr. Greta Anderson, but because when I became Dr. Greta, I was pretty young. It was decades ago at this point. It's hard to believe how time flies, and I felt very uncomfortable with the formality of it all. And people would say, "Oh, Dr. Anderson," and I would kind of cringe. I mean, I was 20 something years old, and I was like that. So people, I would say, "Just call me Greta," and they would say, "Well, how about Dr. Greta?" And I said, "Okay." So Dr. Greta. So everything I do is kind of in that vein of Dr. Greta. So whether it's been my coaching and my leadership as a golf professional, people will know me. A lot of people know Dr. Greta Golf, and a lot of people will know me from my strategy and business coaching and support that I've offered for years, kind of more behind the scenes. And in the recent years and months, frankly, I really brought that out to the fore. So I'm all about helping people move forward in whatever context that is. I really lean in on people who are building businesses, probably first generation, but not, it doesn't have to be, but that's what we're all about.
All right. So, what inspired you to start your own business?
I think, well, I know that I have always had an itch for doing things my own way and helping people from the beginning. So, as you mentioned, I've been in, I'm a what we call the Class A member of the Ladies Professional Golf Association. And before I was a golf professional, I was a pretty high level tennis player and a teacher. So I had all the certifications there. So And so many people, if you knew me probably in the 1900s or in the early 2000s, you may have known me in that regard, because I did as much in that arena as I won't say as much, I take that back. I was much more known as a player in the good way, not player, in that regard, as a tennis player, but also a coach. So as my mom said years ago, and I never really even thought it to be true, but she said, anything that you kind of get into and get passionate about, first of all, you go in. I don't do anything halfway, which is pretty much true. But more importantly, the way that I communicate my passion for that usually turns into teaching. So whether it was tennis, golf, statistics, business, those are the things that I've always loved. And I know some of those are pretty nerdy, but I've ended up being a teacher of those things, an instructor, an educator. So really, that's kind of how I got started in the business of things. I like to teach, and I realize that is a skill set, and that is a business. It's not just something you do randomly if you want to have sustainability and to really be effective in helping people.
And what she's saying is not just hyperbole, because she sits and pulls my coattail on many a thing about Reynard. Maybe you might want to look at this, or maybe you might want to look at it from this direction. And it's the jewels and gems that she passes on has really helped me take my businesses to the next level. And I appreciate you for that wholeheartedly. So,
Oh,
with that being said, what does owning your own shit mean to you professionally as well as personally?
well, I think that professionally, it means just what you said. Owning your own shit really uh, can it can do so many things for you. I know that every person doesn't have, I won't say the Constitution. Everyone's not built for everything, right? So,
Correct.
so being a full-time business owner, being full-time entrepreneur is not necessarily for every human. But I do believe that there is something that you can do that's completely your own. And in this country here, we're based in the United States. We know that the tax code is built. The bottom rung of the tax code goes to the employee. Let's just call it there. So I feel kind of strongly that everyone needs to have something, even if something that is wholly owned by you. Because I remember talking, this was years ago, talking to a client they had a corporate job, and they were making at the time, around 60,000. Okay. And they were, um, as I would say, boohooing on a opportunity, an entrepreneurial opportunity that was going to start out yielding maybe a couple $1,000s a month. They said, why would I spend my time on something that's going to make, a couple thousand a month? Basically, they're feeling like if something was going to be entrepreneurial, it needed to be this 6 or 7 figure proposition. And I kind of remember kind of turning my head and go like, well, let's do the quick math. You spend at minimum 40 hours somewhere else for someone else. Your gross salary is 60,000, which really means you probably bring home about 45 or so, maybe, right?
Maybe. Yeah.
If we break that down, if we go down and break that down by month, that's less than 4,000. Yet this will provide anywhere between 1,500 and 2,000 in a fraction of the time. It has scalability, yet it's not worth your time. We've got to reframe things. So maybe it's not the entrepreneurial endeavor for an individual that's going to be life changing in the context of they're going to be able to go buy, a mansion in Beverly Hills or the middle of Buckhead here in Atlanta, that type of thing. But maybe it is, hey, we can set up a great fund. And so by the time our 6-year-old is ready for college, things are okay. Maybe it's the, hey, we can get this down payment for the house we want to buy, and we can have that in 18 months. So it's a vehicle. And I believe highly that everyone should have a vehicle. Just like you need to have one in your driveway, you need to have one that you can rev up or rev down as you need to.
So, with that being said, I know you come from having a high paying salary job in corporate America.
Yeah.
So, what was your biggest fear in transitioning into saying, you know what? I'm going to be an entrepreneur?
This is going to sound so crazy. I really didn't have a fear. I knew that that was what I was supposed to be. Now, I will remember this vividly because it's been many, decades ago at this point. I remember walking out of that building. It's kind of like the TV shows you see. Everyone hugs, kisses, had the party with the cake. Congratulations, Greta, best wishes. And I remember walking out. A couple of my colleagues had helped me carry out some other boxes from my office. And I remember when I was putting this last, little cardboard box in my car. And I remember going like, oh, okay, this thing is real. And so, but then when I wasn't scared, I will tell you the day that it became real, real. It was the following Friday when a very nice paycheck would have typically posted into my account. And I realized like, oh, this is real. But I wasn't afraid. I had planned, I had saved and all those types of things. But I remember the time when it became real, real, real. I needed some guidance. It was some tech guidance, and then I remember I had like a question, and it was kind of, I think it was legal, tax, or something like that. Now, in corporate, what do? You pick up the phone, you hit a 4-digit extension, you get Sally in legal, you get Tom in IT, they come fix the problem and everything. And then all of a sudden I realized like I am the answer to every single problem.
That's real.
That is the real part. That is the real part. I'm the one like, I got to come up with the answer to everything. And so, but you get over that and you realize that you're much more resourceful than you realize because we problem solve all day, every day, whether that's we're working in a tower for someone else or we're working for ourselves. And it's just realizing that and leveling up, saying, okay, GA, we gotta get this going.
So let's talk about what was your biggest failure and then how did you overcome it?
Oh my, I gotta tell you. So I've been in business, as I've been an entrepreneur. It's hard to believe the time goes. I'm running on 30 years almost. Yeah, 26 years, 25, 6 years. So
and you don't look it. You don't look it because
thank you. I appreciate that.
We don't crack. It don't crack.
It don't crack, right? I appreciate that. So I will say this very candidly. With a lot of successes come even more failures as a business owner, and I think that's the one thing that we have to embrace. It's not a shame thing. It's not a sad thing. The bumps in the road help you level up, right? So I'm trying to think of the biggest one. I think probably the biggest one was a false sense of comfort when with a client. So I'll go back. So I've owned several businesses over the years. I was a co-owner of a manufacturing company for 13 years, and I was in the sleep disorder business. So a lot of people now know all about sleep apnea, right? But at this point, 17, 18 years ago, lots of people had no idea what you would say OSA or obstructive sleep apnea or anything like that. They didn't know what they were talking about. So I was in that industry before it became kind of mainstream. And so, but it's been around, but people didn't know about it. People may have been familiar with it from a clinical sense, but you didn't see TV commercials about sleep apnea and all that type of thing. It wasn't a thing yet. So we designed and manufactured and distributed the soft goods, as we would say, for people with sleep apnea. So not the machine, but all the things that help make the use of the machine achievable and reasonably comfortable. Because that's a tough therapy, it's an unfun therapy. Anyway, so we are kind of struggling and moving along and advancing and everything like that. And lo and behold, the almighty Walmart decides that they're going to distribute our pieces, which is a big deal because we know Walmart is Walmart. And so we go all in, chips all in. All the inventory, which means, because the material we used was handmade in Japan. And I mean, it was a whole thing, which means we kind of shifted all the gears. I was a COO. So I made all of those operational decisions. It's Walmart. We shift everything. Boom. Great. Walmart has the things. They sell everything. Great. I'm sitting there smiling. waiting for the check for Walmart, waiting for the check for Walmart, waiting for the check from Walmart. Call Walmart. Walmart's like, yeah, we saw the net 30 on the invoice, and I'm going like, and it's been 40 days, and it's been 45 days. And essentially, I think it was about day 62 or so. I spoke with one of the receivables, employees over there, and she says, let me just tell you something. We pay when we pay.
Ouch.
We're Walmart. So we don't, I mean, we're going to pay. But, basically she was telling me, sweetie, you can stop calling here every day because it's not going to make us cut this check any faster. And what are you going to do? We're Walmart and you're you. And so I'm sitting there literally every day waiting on the mailman because they were still sending checks, paper checks at this point. And I'm going broke. I'm going broke. Because remember, we'd shifted everything, all the chips in. This is Walmart, all the inventory. So tens and thousands of dollars that we put in. I didn't have any money to produce anything for anybody else because I'm waiting for this money. And so that was a big one because that turned things upside down for a long time. It was a lot of recovery, and it was a lot of ramen noodles and pinto beans and everything, trying to figure that out, as I waited for that. And that was an important lesson. That the lesson was this: no matter the size or the name of the client, diversification is essential.
Wow. And that goes back to so often not, we are in pursuit of the whale
That's right.
and
That's
forget
right.
those goldfish add up too.
Hey, that's right. Those goldfish, those whitefish, little tilapia, they
Right.
all help you eat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's value in that. And that was the big lesson. I've never gone after the whale per se exclusively after that point. It was a really important lesson for me that, remember, they were important to me, but I wasn't important to them.
Now that's powerful. Did you guys hear that? Can you repeat that again? Because I think that might have been a missing gem. Please.
They were important to me. Walmart was everything to me, right? But I was not important to them. I was insignificant to them, inconsequential. They made their profit, and they ultimately paid, but I honestly think it was like 94, 95 days on a net 30 invoice.
Yeah.
Most businesses, we can't sustain that. And so you have to be mindful of those things. There needs to be some measure of equity in this relationship.
See, and so that has me pivot because, as you said, we talk a lot, and so it's so many different areas that I want to tap in with you. But that was key in because I was going to say, what led you to doing all these different type of things that some people might say, well, how does an author or how does a ghostwriter um, connect or tie in to a coach? Or what about the sports background and all of that? And then you mentioned diversity. So can you take it from there, please?
Well, yeah, I think that it's we're here talking, and so there are a lot of pieces to me and my story. So I come from if you will, I like to say kind of that traditional old school family where sport, my parents gave me the freedom and the ability to become very good in athletics, and I'm very thankful for that. But being of the generations that they came from and their parents, education was the goal line, right? Education was the goal. And so I was fortunate to be able to obtain a really great education. And as part of that, I became a writer, a researcher. And so all of those things I've done in the context of the things that I enjoy. I enjoy business. I enjoy business as much as I enjoy a good round of golf. I mean, and I know that sounds nerdy, but it's true. Business is dynamic. It is action. It is movement. It is strategy. It is sport. And so I've taken all of those things. I've kind of, we'll say figured out, but I've found a way to kind of weave all of the things that I believe that I'm good at, that I enjoy, improving myself in, and really helping others. Because really, I love serving others, and that's the way I do it. I think we all do. I think most people have some measure of a servant's heart, but we find our ways to do that and communicate that.
So, mentioning the two premier sports you focused on, golf and tennis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How did that exposure to what we consider non-traditional at the time that you were exposed to
Sure.
African American sports mold you and help you down your journey? Because as I was talking to the girls and my wife earlier, and I was like, give me a question that you would want me to ask Doc.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking to the girls about, because traditionally growing up, you
Mm-hmm.
know, basketball, football, baseball. For the young ladies, it was probably softball, maybe a little basketball. And then I don't even know if volleyball was a thing back then for us. So just how did
Yeah.
those non-traditional cultural sports impact your development?
Yeah, well, I just love. First of all, I love all sports. Anybody knows me, and I'm a sports girl. I love sports. And the one of the reasons that I love sports is, in this conversation could probably go many ways with this, but I will say this: there are very few places in this world where it's a true meritocracy. And sports, I mean, unfortunately, it can be sometimes when there's a little bit of intervention, but for the most part, sports is a great demonstration of meritocracy, right? If I'm better than you on that day, then it is what it is. These are the rules. No tilting of the playing field. This is the length of the field. This is the width of the field or the court or the course or whatever the case may be. These are the rules. We both agreed upon them, and let us play. And whoever comes out with the most points or whatever the objective of that said sport is the winner, period. It's not because you look that way, you look that way, or this or that. Nope, nope. You can come from the richest of families, and I can come from the least resource family. But if I'm faster than you, if I hit the ball better than you that day, I'm going to win. And so I've always loved that about sport, because that's not always the case in our lives. In terms of my introduction to tennis, which was what came first, is that, I mean, first of all, I think you know this, but I grew up right in the middle of Detroit, Northwest Detroit, 7 Mile and Schaefer. And I was introduced to tennis right there in the city. And so, unfortunately, we know that, the world has changed much, and with budget cuts and some of the things that may or may not be available to children in different cities and that type of thing, we don't always have those availability. But I think that I know that there's still some programming. But as for me, all those decades ago, my first day on the tennis court was through the police athletic retreat, the police
Wow.
athletic league, PAL, right? Detroit
Wow.
PAL,
Yep.
right there, where I ultimately ended up going to school as a middle schooler, Bobby and Junior High School at that time, right there. They had some great tennis courts there. I think that's Pinehurst, on Pinehurst. Anybody from Detroit might know all these streets, right?
What
Right
up, though?
there. Yeah, what up, though? Right there. And I remember it was my first little tennis. His name was Calvin Wise, and he may or may not even remember this. I remember it so vividly. I wasn't much taller than the net, right? And back in the day, tennis rackets were so heavy. I think the racket weighed as much as I did, and I remember I could not get that ball over the net. And so he was so kind, because he had a milk crate, right, full of tennis balls. And when he realized I couldn't get it over the net, he walked around. He was like, "No problem." And he walked around with the crate to the same side, right? So he could feed the ball to me. So I didn't realize all this. And so, the arc was a little bit higher. So the little force that I could give it could give me some success. And I remember, like it was yesterday, the ball went over the net and I was hooked. I was absolutely hooked. And so that spot right there is where I played many, many hours, with many, 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 many years honing my skills. I would hang out in the afternoons, and I ended up playing regularly with a bunch of grown men. I mean, grown men. And the good news about that is, they showed no mercy, right? Which made me a very good player. When you're a 12-year-old girl playing with grown A men, and they realize you can play, and so they want to help you hone your skills. I became a good player, but I also I played with the community of people. I played with those gentlemen regularly, but I also was part of a great community at a little bitty club that sits right in the middle of Detroit that most people would not even know about. Clay Court Club, Metropolitan Racket Club, Black owned, and it was just an amazing place. Most of the other kids that I played with there played very high level D1 tennis. Tried their hand on the tour, but more importantly, it was just a great nurturing place and space. And so while I got amazing tennis skills there, what I also got was kind of this empowerment and comfort in taking my skills out into the world in places where I knew I would be the only one, or maybe two of one, but that translated into me being very comfortable in, if you will, majority environments that did not anticipate or expect or believe that I might need to be there. And so that really worked well when it came to education, business, because I'm basically unfazed, which is unfortunate that it has to be that way in this world sometimes, but it is what it is.
So let me just scratch that next question I was about to ask you off, because I was going to go there. Like, how do you navigate? What prepared you in the being able to navigate spaces and rooms where you might have been the only one, or as you indicated, one of two, but you just kind of answered that for me. But I want to go back to
Sure.
like the Walmart
Sure.
situation,
Mm-hmm.
and I want you to speak on the importance of having that capital, or how did that having capital or lack of access to capital develop you and strengthen you and prepare you for the long-term journey, which obviously you've shown the duration and staying power, as you said, over 3-4 decades now of being a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah. Yeah. That capital, it'll get you, won't it? Won't it? It's an important that capital. Well, it's a tough because it can be the differentiator between your business sustaining and succeeding and scaling or not. I mean, so that's why one of those reasons why I think it's important to understand what your whale needs to look like, because we know that the scales are not always balanced when it comes to capital and the access to it. But you can't necessarily let that stop you. I mean, you have to have something, but going into a deal or deals that are going to leave you upside down it's the death knell, right? I mean, you've got to be kind of smart about it. So I, directionally, I'm a big believer in building with what you have. I've really, excuse me, worked really hard to kind of really encourage that with clients, and I really developed my sweet spot with the type of clients that I work with because of that. I'm really, really, really good at helping clients make the most of their existing capital. And then there's a time where your business is going to scale where where it's a good thing to really maybe kind of invest in obtain outside capital. But that's a different kind of thing. So many businesses, most businesses, before they get to that point, because I always say what gets you from A to B doesn't get you from B to C. Like there are different things. There are different phases in business and business development. And so understanding the power of capital, but understanding that sometimes this is going to sound harsh and I don't want it to sound that way, but we can use capital as an excuse in the beginning, right? Things cost something, but that something doesn't always have to be, coin or scratch. A lot of it can be and might be, but we have to kind of look beyond that, because in the beginning, if you don't have a business, you may not have a lot of capital. You may have some money to invest in that type of thing, but the capital that a lot of people are thinking of may not be available to them at that time.
So, what is your ideal client?
Sure. My ideal client can look like many things. My ideal client sometimes is a person or an individual who they are moving, right? They're doing things, but they may not be advancing. They may not be advancing in the way they want to, or through no fault of their own, they're indecisive. Because one of the things about business, it can be terrifying, as I've learned over the years in working with hundreds of clients at this point, is making the decision, because you can't do everything. You can't serve everyone. If we think about the world of business and enterprise that we look around, there are a handful of companies that have the gravitas and the resources and the luxury to decide that they can basically serve anyone and everyone. And even the ones that have that kind of capital, they don't want to because it's too hard, right? And if they do, they have divisions, right? And that requires a lot of time and resources and that type of thing. So for most of us that are building small, as I call them, like speedboat businesses, you got to choose. Who do you serve? What do you do? And you got to be laser focused on that, which means you got to cut out 99% of the other stuff. And that's terrifying to people because, again, it goes back to many of us kind of having that servant's heart. Like, but I don't want to say no to them. Because sometimes we really just don't want to say no because we believe we can serve them, and it doesn't mean that you can't. But also, I don't want to turn away that coin, right? Which is real. But that is, to go far, you've got to make some hard decisions. And it doesn't mean that you can't change, but you got to make the decisions.
See, and what this brings me back to is what you initially started off saying. A lot of us sometimes, think that being busy is the same as being productive.
Oh boy, yeah.
And so I know during my journey, in my stagnation and my paralysis of analysis, that used to be my fallback thing. Oh, I had to do this, I had to do that. But then when I start, looking back and going and observing and being real with myself, I'm like, were you being busy or were you being productive?
Yes, well said.
So often now, I think we mistake the difference between those. And you hit on something else. When I started off with my real estate journey, I would simply, somebody would be running me from pillar to post. It was just like, oh, where do you want to, where's your specialty? And I would sit up here and say, hey, when you're hungry, you don't worry about where the restaurant is, you worry about where they're serving food. Right. And so I would be in Decula 1 minute, and then I would be down in Buckhead. Then the next minute I'm in Hampton. And what I noticed, I wasn't specializing in anything. But it said I was hungry and I wanted that dime. Realizing that you need to get a niche.
Yes.
You need to get laser focused on what do you do and what do you do best. And that was such a powerful awakening for me. And so I'm glad you touched on that.
Yes. One of the things I remember was a few years ago, Mercedes-Benz. I was reading an article. I can't remember. It might have been, I don't know. Again, I'm the kind of business nerd. It might have been, Harvard Review or something like that. Anyway, and I believe it was their CEO or maybe somebody from their C-suite. And they were talking about how the big mistake that Mercedes-Benz had made a few years back was going into making a broader array of products. Remember, what was it? Not the A, what was it? Was it the M? No. I can't remember.
190 Benz back in the day.
Yes, that class. So they were talking about those, when they tried to do that, and they talked about all of the ripple effect of how it had an adverse effect on the production of all of their tried and true. But more importantly, how it put a ding in their reputation that they said was going to take them about 10 to 15 years to clean up. They said, Mercedes is the oldest automobile company in the world. Ford expanded production, but Mercedes-Benz is the oldest one. And they talked about how their original vision with that was to expand their market from about 1.5% of what they have to about 3.5%. Now, in a place like Atlanta or even, like Michigan, there are numerous places where you're driving down the road and it doesn't look like Mercedes-Benz has 1.5% of the market, right? It's like every car at the light is a Benz, right?
Right.
But they really do have a small share. And when that expansion costs them, it costs them revenue and reputation. and brand power. And so to me, I always think about that. Mercedes-Benz goes going like, big mistake, big mistake. We tried to serve too many people. We are an act, and this was the powerful part of it. They said, we are an aspirational brand. For whatever reason, we got away from that. We do understand that we are not a product for everybody. Many people want to be in a Mercedes, and that is the way it should be. It's not for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's how we have to think about our brands. It's not, and I'm not saying that as about status or anything like that. Everything is not for everybody.
Woo. So what does Black excellence mean to you?
Mm-hmm. It can mean a lot of things. I think that one of the things is Black excellence means excellence of, and people that have been on my lesson T will say that they roll their eyes, especially my juniors. They go, okay, here she comes with her Dr. Greta-ism. But Black excellence for me means excellence of effort. There's no such thing as perfection, but you can exhibit excellence of effort every single time. Don't settle. Do your best. Do your research. Just don't be half-assed. I mean, to put it blank for. So, and Black excellence, I think will come forth if we do it that way. Treat people as they would want to be treated, right? There's gold, and then there's platinum. I treat you the way you want to be treated, not the way I want to be treated. And I think if Black excellence can be all of those colors, right? Gold, platinum, black, right? But Black excellence means really putting forth the best, your best, every day, every time.
So what would today's Dr. Greta tell the Dr. Greta who is starting off on her journey? What would be your advice to her?
Yes, I think young entrepreneur Dr. Greta, she I would say probably not about patience. She was just a little too forgiving, and a little too generous of pocket and a little too generous of spirit sometimes. I think so. And I try to be very generous of spirit and kind of spirit, and generous in all ways. But business is business sometimes, and you have to believe what you see. I think that's when we need to take a cue from the great Dr. Maya Angelou, who said, right, when they show you who they are,
Believe it.
right? And a couple of times, I just didn't want to believe what I saw, and it cost me. It may have cost me financially, but I gained knowledge-wise. And so nothing that I'm bitter about. I think that those are just kind of some of the scars that you develop. I mean, because it's just like any other level of development. You kind of have to grow, and you're going to get some nicks and cuts along the way. And it's important to not let them embitter you, or make you, less than optimistic in that type of thing, or kind-hearted. But just know that those types of things. So that would be the kind of thing, like, kind of be a little bit more discerned. Use my gift of discernment. Discernment is one of my spiritual gifts. I kind of will say went against that as a younger Greta, thinking that I could outthink things. And that would probably what I would say. Nope. Now I zero in when I'm not seeing and feeling things. Cut the ties, and I don't mind going the other way.
See, that's one of the things that I had to learn, that it's a small word, but it makes a big impact for your mental health and physical health. That no is a complete sentence.
No is a complete sentence, right? And it can be no with a smile, right? And right. I don't owe you an explanation behind it. No, I can give you one, but I don't owe it to you. And I would say, if you didn't ask me this, but if one of my favorite words that I remind myself when things seem to be kind of getting out of control or not quite right, pruning, right? You look at any beautiful garden, any beautiful lawn, beautiful head of hair, what happens regularly? Pruning. That goes back to the word, right? We're not going to get biblical up in here, but pruning is an essential activity to keep things in order.
Now, I do want to go a little bit off script
Sure.
because I know that you have a book this soon to be coming out. And so it's going to be regional for some of us who are not
Yeah.
familiar with our hometown of Detroit. But talk to me about your book that's coming out and referencing one of our landmark individuals off of one of our landmark shows that I grew up like, hey, this is my guy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
talk to us about that.
Well, right. So the book is called Detroit Style, the Fast Freddie Anderson Story. So right. So if you're from the D, right, and you of a certain age or not, I mean, most people there know our beloved icon. I mean, he's the original. He's the original icon of many things. He is Fast Freddie Anderson, right? And I just believe so strongly that his amazing story needs to be told. He is, I mean, he is the embodiment of Detroit, right? And so, let me full disclosure there is no coincidence. Yes, we are cousins. He's my second cousin. And so, but so I've grown up and grew up, right, watching the evolution of Freddie, and you taking advantage of my skills as a researcher, a writer, and an author. It really wasn't my idea per se. I want to be full disclosure there. My uncle, James Anderson, who passed away a few months ago, but several years ago at a family gathering, we were all talking about Freddie. Freddie was right there. We were all talking, and he said to me, "You should write. You should write the book." And I said, "Okay." We're laughing, joking. We go on and with it. And he kind of doubled back months later and said, "Hey, don't forget about that project." And then I said, "Okay." And life kept going. And then he doubled back again and said, "Hey, you know how it is when those elders speak to you in a different tone. Hey,
Right.
remember
Hey,
that project I told you about? You're going to write that book," which was a great pleasure to do. So we decided to approach it, you know, like any other project, but there's so much a treasure trove of things to learn and know about Freddie. And even though I've grown up as a part of it, and we're a tight knit family, the Andersons, it was an amazing history lesson, an amazing research exercise. So what we did is we compiled all of this, interviews, hours and hours of interviews with Freddie and many people all through the city of Detroit, through my family, and really just put together an amazing photo history of Freddie, because we know he was the man on the scene, right? But his journey really did not begin there. It's a really amazing and fascinating story for anyone, but because his journey, his entry into the world was a difficult one. I mean, he didn't walk until he was almost 3.5 years old because he was so ill. And so it was just it's a really a story of perseverance, of pride, and so many things, alongside just an impeccably dressed man. It just amazes me how, his closet and just him and how he rolls and everything like that. So the Detroit Style, the Fast Freddie Anderson story, it'll be out in a few weeks, and we're really excited about it. And so it's already gotten some amazing press coverage and that type of thing, because both he and his story are just so worthy of being told. And I believe that one of the great things about having the ability to research and read and write and serve as an author is that we get to decide and use those skills on telling our stories. That can be a whole other conversation, because heretofore we've, and the world of publishing now has kind of leveled out some things. Heretofore, we've had to wait on other people to decide whether or not our stories were worth being told, of being published, of being aired, so on and so forth, before they would, right? And now we can level the playing field. We can use our own skills with our own resources, with our own technology, to tell a story, just like any major publishing house does. And so I think that's a great thing.
well, Now, and just for those of you guys who don't know what the scene is, the scene was our local version of Soul Train.
It was better than Soul
Right,
Train because it was
right.
our people, and it
Because it
was
was
every
ours.
day.
It was
Came
ours.
on every day, Monday through Friday.
And Fast Freddy, I mean, this guy was impeccable, and his signature move was he would have his jacket draped around his shoulders, and he'd give it that little shoulder flip and go down and kick his jacket off, and we would lose it. I mean, so yeah,
Yeah,
that was phenomenal. I mean, so
phenomenal. So
I'm
yeah,
I'm glad you're getting his story
yeah,
out
and it's
and getting it
great.
to.
And so the executive producer and owner of the scene, Mr. Nat Morris, he wrote the forward for the book. It's just a great piece. So between the photos that are in there, because of course you can't do a piece about Fast Freddy without having a whole section about the scene and that great history. But there's so many, just like I said, he's just such a great guy. And a lot of people don't know that he was the first, and I think thus far maybe the only, um, just as we say, like a regular dude, non-celebrity, that had a full feature article about him in Gentleman's Quarterly magazine.
Wow,
So
OGQ.
September 2000, I mean, they did a full multi-page article and photo shoot about him, came to town and everything like that. So yeah, it's he's had a remarkable is continuing to have, because I mean he's still doing his thing, looking great and feeling great and contributing in many ways. So yes, so yep, we got the book, we got many one of many things.
Sugar to sugar, salt to salt.
It
If you
ain't
didn't
off,
get off, it ain't
not
our
my
fault.
fault.
It's not our fault. So, with that being said, and I appreciate the time you've given us, what do you want entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, to walk away knowing and feeling after they hear all your successes, your trials, your tribulations? What do you want to give them?
Sure. I think the one thing that I want to impart upon, whether they're young in their entrepreneurial journey or maybe moving along in that. So, that young, it's not necessarily a chronological thing. They just may be at a phase where it's time to pivot or grow, or they don't know. You mentioned my heavy involvement in both sport and business for all of these years. And one of the things that I understood that always, I won't say that I continue to find baffling, but I do like to bring this point to people. The higher the level of skill of the athlete, right? The greater the expectation or the belief we have that they probably have a team and a cadre of coaches supporting them, right?
Correct.
Yet, when it comes to business, people who may have never even been in business think that they're going to probably be successful on this journey without coaching and support. Why? You will find that most successful business people, they have support along the way. You may not have seen it, but they have had it. So one of the things, and one of the biggest things that made a difference for me, I will say, and again, we could talk for hours about many things, is when I embraced the fact that I don't know everything and I can't see all the lanes, and good coaching will bring support and guidance to me along this way and help me skip a bunch of potholes. And I've never gone without, for about 20 years now, I've never gone without having a business coach alongside me. And it's one of the things that I use to help, really, it really fuels me, right? In serving in that way for other people. But people that are intent about building a business, no, you gotta have support. You don't know everything. And I could try to figure this out, but why am I going to take 5 years to figure out something that somebody could tell me in 2 hours? That's just kind of being silly. So all that to say, I would say that be smart and give serious consideration to coaching regularly. It's an investment, not a cost. And understanding the difference between an investment or a cost, those are the types of differentiations that will help you go far in business.
That right there was a mic drop moment. It's an investment, not a cost. So often we look at things that we pay out and put out. oh, it's a cost, it's an expense. But
Right.
there is a difference between an expense, a cost, and an investment.
Yes.
With that being said, Dr. Greta, thank you. But she also mentioned that we could go on and on for hours. So this won't be our last conversation. We're just going to put a pin in it till we reconvene again. Thank you. We wish you the very best of continued success. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your knowledge and your input. And have a great one. And as always, with WHTOOS, we have to own our own shit. Like and subscribe. See you on the next one. Take care.
Take care.